My next patron question is from Morgan, who wants to know about the current legacy of a classic comedian. Red Skelton did a lot of feature films and had a long-running TV show, yet he's not talked about as much. Is Red underrated or just not looked at enough? Red Skelton was a comedian who was a big deal at the time, especially for his variety show which ran in the 50s and 60s, but it does seem like he has been largely forgotten by today's audiences. I admit, even though I'm an aficionado of classic movies, the only one of his leading roles I've seen is the musical Three Little Words, co-starring Fred Astaire. Meanwhile, his television show is one that I've not come across, and I assume I'm not the only one. Skelton himself owned the rights to his show and for several years refused to let the episodes be rebroadcast, once claiming that it was because he felt the modern television viewing audience was only interested in comedy with four-letter words. He was apparently very bitter about the way his show was cancelled by CBS in 1970. Even though it was still getting high ratings, CBS wanted to court a younger viewership residing in the bigger cities, and the Red Skelton Show is not the only series affected by this. The Beverly Hillbillies, Green Acres, Petticoat Junction, and Lassie were also cancelled in the early 70s to make way for series that networks felt the younger audience at the time would relate more to, like All in the Family and MASH. There was even a name for this, the Rural Purge. Pat Buttram, one of the actors on Green Acres, even joked that CBS cancelled everything with a tree in it, including Lassie. The Red Skelton Show was picked up by NBC shortly afterwards, but did not last very long. Some of those rural purge shows, like the Beverly Hillbillies, did manage to live on in reruns and are still somewhat remembered. But like I said, Red Skelton refused to let the show get rerun. So you have entire generations who are not familiar with a lot of his classic material. It really highlights the importance of keeping certain media accessible to the audience with the possibility that they might discover it and give it longevity. A lot of us probably became a fan of something by stumbling across it on television, and Skelton prevented that from happening for years. After he died in 1997, did the Red Skelton Show air frequently on television? I don't recall ever seeing it on television, and it's not like television stations were post-airing classic shows in the 90s and 2000s, especially if they had the rights. I recall seeing reruns of The Munsters, I Dream of Jeannie, and MASH throughout the daytime schedule, and you could often count on PBS to air classic British sitcoms like Fawlty Towers and Are You Being Served? If the show did rerun at some point during this period, it was not on any channel or time slot I watched, although maybe your experience was different. The rights to his show are currently held by Shout Factory, who have released the episodes on disc. They're also available to stream for free on the Shout Factory website and Tubi in the United States, so they're certainly trying to make his work available for people to see. I've mostly talked about the Red Skelton Show, but what about the movies and other productions he appeared in? He did have cameos in high-profile films like Around the World in 80 Days, Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines, and the original Ocean's 11. Throughout his film career, he did appear in musicals at MGM, quite a few of which were directed by noted filmmaker Vincent Minnelli. They have likely all played on Turner Classic Movies over the years, and I'm sure he's gained a following that way. And some of them are remembered by classic movie fans. I mentioned Three Little Words earlier, but he also had major roles in Do Barry Was a Lady with Gene Kelly and Lucille Ball, and Neptune's Daughter starring Esther Williams. Those three films, plus another Esther Williams vehicle, Bathing Beauty, were considered by the American Film Institute for that list of the best movie musicals, although none made the final top 25. As for his comedies, not a single one made it onto the AFI's list of the 100 best movie comedies. However, despite everything, I think he absolutely still has his admirers. Whether it's those who remember seeing his show when it originally aired, or those who've now discovered it later thanks to streaming and DVD releases. I went from not seeing anything Charlie Chaplin had done to stumbling across the gold rush to eventually becoming a massive fan of his work. I'm sure there are those who've had the same experience with Red Skelton. I don't think any entertainer is truly forgotten, as there will always be people who learn about them, look into what they made, and find themselves impressed and enjoying what they created. Thank you for your question, Morgan.